Breaking Boundaries, Unconventional Paths to Success in Broadcast and Production. This session presents a panel of seasoned journalism professionals who have forged exciting careers in broadcast and production outside of the traditional news structure, generously sponsored by Northwest Public Broadcasting. Moderating this session is Marvin Marcello, a scholarly associate professor at the Murrow College of Communication. Working behind the scenes of broadcast production, Marcello teaches advanced television production, where students, in addition to their regular class assignments, work with the television news students to produce and air the nightly newscasts, Murrow News 8, using professional broadcast equipment. His research interests include large and small screen cinema production. Students describe Marcello as an excellent example of what it means to be an educator. He is passionate, knowledgeable, helpful, and he treats every student with respect. Please welcome Marvin Marcello.
Check. There we go. Thanks. What a great introduction. I didn't even know that was going to happen. So neat. Thanks for the write-up, whoever did that. Anyway, welcome to this session. I'm Marvin Marcello, as they said, and I'm hoping that you gain a lot of insight from this great panel sitting here. I'll do some quick introductions about our panelists, and then we can go right into their path into media or television, radio production. First, in red, Claire Chun is a filmmaker in Seattle, and she has won several different awards for her short films, and as an actress. And prior to directing, Claire had some acting in, what was that, Cooking with Claire? That also won you an award?
Yeah, it was a 48-hour film in Seattle. We won Best in City. And in Paris, 2000, it was the World Competition, 2018. In spring, we competed with all of the other major cities and states and countries that made a film in 2 days or less.
Great.
So, yeah.
To her left is Joey Clift, who is a writer, performer, and a registered member of the Cowlitz Indian tribe. He has written for Spirit Rangers for Netflix and for PBS's Molly of Denali. And he has a really storied past where he can share how he got to where he is. To Claire's right is Julian Sturbick-Myers, is a television and virtual event showrunner who's produced shows for cable and online broadcast. Those shows range from the mansions of Beverly Hills to the icy waters of the Antarctica. He also works for, is it Xbox, Julie? And does showrunner for those events there. To his right is Taryn Daly, the voice of KISW 99.9. Sorry, I should have wrote this font bigger because I'm so old I can't see this anymore. She's known for her on-air energy, enthusiasm, as well as the love for the rock band Rush, local India Pale Ales, and the Girl Next Door vibe. She also serves as the assistant brand manager and format social media captain for Odyssey's rock-in classic rock station across the country. And next to her is Robert Dove, consulting partner of MBT Marketing Communications, an accomplished executive sales and marketing leader, and former Northwest Region president of iHeartRadio. And you saw him earlier receive our award, so thank you very much. All right, so this panel is going to talk about their unconventional paths to their successes, and we each kind of walk our paths here, and we have our own stories to what we consider, most of us, a success. So I'm going to start with Robert here, and let's start with you and your path to production or radio.
Well, I definitely wasn't in production. Is this thing on?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, a lot of times I get asked, how did I end up on the path I ended up on? Because obviously I came to school here, and 90% of you who are here probably came here wanting to be on air and obviously be a journalist. And that's what I thought I wanted to do when I first got here too. And just being blunt, I just came to the conclusion I wasn't talented enough. I didn't think I was a strong enough writer. I think in the broadcast space, you obviously have to have really strong writing skills, and my writing was fine, but I didn't think it was good enough to get me to where I ultimately wanted to go. And so I just had a pretty good head for business. My dad was an executive in the grocery industry, so family dinners growing up. You talk about business problems all the time at the dinner table. And I think I said this if you heard me speak earlier, I went to Portland State for 1 year and then transferred up here and actually only went here for 3. But I was a business major when I started down there before I came up here, so I just kind of went into more of the management track. And I guess what I would say is it's changed a lot. I mean, really the biggest change that I saw in the industry, obviously I'm the oldest person sitting at this table, was 1996. That's when the telecom bill passed, and that's what really changed the broadcast industry, meaning the ownership limitations basically came off. When I first broke into the business, the ownership levels were you could own 24 radio stations and 12 television stations. That was it. Typically, in most markets, you'd have an operator that would own a TV station and an AM/FM combo, and that would maybe happen in 12 markets, and that would be your 24/12. And the reasoning for that was because back in the day, most broadcast facilities were owned by old family money that probably owned the city's newspaper as well. And so there was a concern of obviously that family having political clout to put influence over the city of where there was ownership. Just cutting to the chase, what happened was in 89, 90, we had a huge economic collapse at that time, and a lot of the broadcast companies got into financial trouble. And that led to duopoly, which kind of started in 92, where ownership restrictions started to be lifted because, quite frankly, the banks didn't want to own television stations and radio stations, which then in turn to eventually the telecom bill passing. And so now, most cities and large markets, you have, 7 to 8 radio stations under one ownership. Some cases you'll have 2 television stations now. So that was kind of what was the driving force within the industry, and that's really kind of what drove my career path, because coming up the management track, there were positions that were invented that didn't exist before. Like example, what was a director of sales? The old days, you had a GM for every radio station, you had a sales manager for the radio station, you might have had a national sales manager, and then you had a sales staff underneath you. Well, now you had to have a sales manager over the entire cluster, because instead of running one radio station that maybe did 7 or 8 million in revenue, now all of a sudden you were responsible for 40 million. And somebody had to captain that and what the sales strategy was and how you were going to grow, because part of what happened with consolidation was, just being blunt, overpaying pricing for stations. Because one of the challenges that happened in the broadcast business was you start getting ownership now in the broadcast industry that weren't broadcasters. They were venture capital companies and things like that who would overpay, load your company up with debt, and which was all well and good when times are good, but when you have 9/11, the Great Recession, then the digital landscape starts to change things. Well, now all of a sudden you got a debt service problem. And so, that just has changed the industry a lot. I'm out of the business now. I've been out of it for about 1.5 years. I would say the last 8 years anyway, maybe 9, you really started to see the change. I mean, it started to change, truthfully, when the iPhone came out, about 2006, or when maybe the iPod. I mean, if you're old enough to remember the iPod commercial with the dancing, because before that they had things like Sony Walkmans, but none of that really played into the broadcast business. But you could see where technology was going and how that was going to impact things, because streaming audio and all these things that were going to come into play. And the reality of that was, people were going to use multi-channels to access broadcast content. And so that meant how your sales platform to go-to-market strategy was going to have to change, because you had to sell streaming. Now you have podcasting. You had to have analytics attached to it now too, much like the digital landscape, where you could geo-fence, geo-target audiences even through broadcast information. And that's really where iHeart went. Because if those of you have downloaded the iHeart app, some of you are probably on Pandora, some of you have Spotify, some of you might be on the iHeart app. Well, when you're on those platforms, like it or not, they've got your data. And that's how they can target you and geo-target and geo-fence and everything that's happening where the broadcast industry has gone. If you're in a major market, I don't know like now, but I would say if you look at the top line revenue of broadcast operation today, probably 25% of it now is coming out of digital platforms. And to put that in perspective, maybe 5 years ago it was 7%. That just shows you how drastically it's changing. I don't really know what else I can tell you. I mean, I'm not really on the on-air side. I'm on the business
You
side.
already let us talk to him.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap it up and let you guys kind of go. If you have questions at the end, you can come find me.
Robert, thank you very much. It is good to know the business side of everything, because that's the bottom line. I mean, you're not going to have a job or a place to work unless that business is running, and knowing how that business runs in the background is important. And speaking of business, Taryn, you were in news first, and then you went into radio. And so kind of tell us how your path kind of went from speaking or doing the newscast every night on I think we had it called Cable 8 News back then.
Yes, I did do Cable 8. Shout out to all the Cable 8 homies out there. So much fun, a wealth of information, friends that you make along the way that you get to keep in touch with. So definitely get involved in that. It's so much, it's just a blast, both on the production side and on the talent side. Being on both sides of the camera, fantastic. But I did kind of have this just deep love of music that I still have to this day, and so I really decided I wanted to get into radio. But I was also at a place in my life when I graduated that I didn't want to move away, and I kind of have some regrets about that, not going somewhere and really like cutting my teeth somewhere outside of my native, Seattle area. So I started working for KRKO Radio in Everett. That at the time it was an ESPN affiliate, and they had a local afternoon show, and I was in the advertising and sales department, and I had no idea what I was doing, because when I was here, my emphasis was broadcasting. So I was basically learning an almost new skill, limping along and not very good at it, but they would let me come on in the afternoon and do a concert review or a movie review or something like that, so I was still feeling like I was involved. I was close enough, but I wanted to get closer. So I ended up leaving. I kind of did a little other sales job that I also was not very good at, and then I worked at a nonprofit. Left that, came back to work in radio up in Bellingham at Cascade Radio Group. It's Saga Communications, and I was back in the sales and advertising department, limping along, pretending I knew what I was doing, and just trying to be friends with the program director and trying to get back to my on-air passion and my on-air roots. And so I just kept banging on his door. Hey, can you let me do weekends? I'll do fill-ins, or whatever you need, I'll do the thing. And so as I'm selling, I'm also doing weekends and fill-ins for the classic rock station up there, 92.9 KISM, which happens to be where my husband is a morning show partner. It's the Brad and John show up there, and he's been there for 20 odd years. But I learned very quickly that I wasn't going to be able to grow there. It's such a heritage station that most people on the air there have been there for as long as my husband has been there or longer. So I knew I needed to get out of there. Gotta move on. So I started making demos and sending them to all the stations in Seattle, and hearing a lot of no's, and getting really sad, and then trying harder and not taking no for an answer. I made a demo and sent it actually to 107.7 The End, which is a sister station of the cluster I work for. And because they had a job posting, and the PD actually slid my demo down the hall to KISW, where I had been listening to that station since I was a tiny tot. And Ryan Castle called me and said, we want to hear from you again. We want you to do a new demo and do this and be better. And I was like, okay, I'll be better. So I probably made 10 different demos for Ryan Castle, just like praying that they would give me the job. for weekends and fill-ins. And so they ended up bringing me on board, and I did weekends and fill-ins for about 2 years on KISW. And then the night host who was there before me, Jolene, had been there for about a decade. She was a rock goddess, rock queen of the whole city, and she retired from radio, and I put in for her job. And there was a lot of people in line that wanted that job too. And I had the feeling that there was no way in hell I was going to get it. And they took a chance on me. And I've been there it'll be 10 years. Tomorrow is my 10-year anniversary at KISW. So 6 to 10 p.m. is the hours that I'm on the air there. It's a lot of fun. We get to play music and talk about music and concerts and all the fun things. We call our listeners rockaholics, and they are just an extremely passionate group of people. Our morning show is BJ and Migs. We have Ryan Castle in the midday, and then the men's room is on in the afternoon. And I'm the only one that has a 4-year degree from the Edward R. Murrow College of Communication at WSU. So I'm like a proud coug in that building, and they know it, and all the listeners know it. I'm not shy about shouting it from the rooftops, even in the middle of Husky country. But I also, on top of that, I'm the social media director for all of our classic rock and rock stations across the country. And then I am the assistant brand manager. So I schedule all the music. I help with all of the different production elements that we do. We have production meetings every week and music meetings every week. I get to wear my journalism hat a lot because I interview bands all the time. I have a top secret interview being released on Friday. I cannot tell you who they are, but it's going to be really good.
Give us one hint.
They have been compared to Led Zeppelin recently.
Wow.
Interviewing bands backstage at some of our marquee events like Pain in the Grass is a big festival that we put on every summer. And, getting to sit backstage and interview, bands that I've been listening to my whole life, and I can't help but fangirl. I'm not cool. I'm not cool at all, you guys. I fangirl every time. But being somebody that gets to interview and get stories and pull information, I wear my journalism hat a lot. And it's very important to me and very special to me. And I spend a lot of time crafting what I'm going to do in an interview before I do it. So basically, bottom line is my story is advocate for yourself, find mentors within your organization, wherever it is you go. And if you're somewhere where you don't feel supported, you should go somewhere else and find somebody that will take you under their wing, like Jolene did for me, like Ryan Castle still does for me. Find those people in your organization or in another organization that will help you achieve your dreams. Ask them a million questions, say yes to everything, take the extra work, do weekends, do nights, do fill-ins, do all the things, and you will get where you want to be.
Great. Thanks, Taryn. Some very wise words. Julian's next to her, and Julian, before you tell your story about this, I want to tell a short story about Julian. After graduation, we have a little reception in Gertsen Hall at the very end of the graduation period, and I was downstairs, and Julian's mom beelined her way to me and went right in front of my face and said, "This is great. You want my son to move down to Hollywood without a job?" And I said, "No, your son wants to." So, other than that, Julian, I heard your career went really well after that.
To which that I said, what is this one? To which that I said, yeah, it's totally Marvin's idea. Yeah, so I did move to LA without a job. I got a job pretty quick though, Marv. I worked on several TV shows, started out either PA work or camera work like everybody else. I'd say that if this is all about unconventional journeys, reality shows started to get pretty big. So we started doing reality shows because that's where most of the jobs were. And when there's a new kind of content coming out, that's usually where you can quickly get to a senior level because there's only so many people who are only so experienced doing it. So that was for about 10 years. I did a lot of shows that were either not successful at all or very successful. They all paid all the same, and that's fine. There was a lot of Real Housewives involved. That was unintentional, but sometimes you just take the shows that are successful and you roll with them. And then there was a lot of documentary type of reality shows, like, I don't know if you guys remember these, but like Whale Wars was one where, went out to Antarctica, and that was more of, I guess you could say, using the journalism skills. But it was just a mix of leaving WSU with broadcasting skills, journalism skills, always being able to use those skills, leaving here pretty well prepared, and then just always saying yes, always raising your hand, and always being available and interested in doing things that maybe you're not experienced in, but are willing to become experienced in very quickly. And then since then, I've moved back. I come here and say hi to Marv every once in a while, and I work at Microsoft, or should do projects for Microsoft. Some of them shooting commercials, which you can tell are not at all like shooting reality shows. That goes to more of the idea of just always kind of saying yes and always joining projects that are new, exciting, and just a little bit scary. And then during COVID, big companies like Microsoft are used to doing large live events with full convention centers of 20,000 people. And then when we stopped doing that for COVID, we would start doing them all online. And so we did virtual live events, and we do them out of a television studio. And that whole adaptive process happened very quickly. And that was more of just saying, yeah, of course, sign me up. Totally down to do that. And the minute you do one of those types of events, which no one was doing, all of a sudden you're the most senior person in the room, just because you rose your hand and you weren't really afraid to fail. And that's how everyone does it. And if somebody's saying, everyone's kind of just pretending that they know what they're doing and just kind of adapting as quickly as possible. And at the end, everyone claps, says high five, we all did it. And then we kept doing that through COVID, and now if you find yourself in any of these events, they're a mix. Now there's a convention center full of 40,000 people, but everything similar, just like a very big version of what's going on over there and kind of what's happening in here. But everything's being webcast at the same time. So now it's a mix of a TV show and a live event kind of sandwich. And that's what I do now.
Great, Julian, thanks. Claire had a different path as well. Claire was in the broadcast production class with me and was trying to direct one day and doing a really good job, but she kept feeling bad about it every single time because she goes, I'm just not really good at this. And I said, you just aren't putting yourself into that mode where you need to be like a director. But one day, I bet you will. And here she is now as an accomplished actress and director, writer. So Claire, let's hear your path.
All right, I'll do does this work testing? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah, my story honestly started in the academic, professor-student hours with Professor Marvin Marcello. And I have to say, yes, we're going to talk about our careers here, but I always love coming here every year because I think it's a feedback loop. Like, I feel like I'm learning as much from you guys as I hope you're learning from my story. I think a lot, I'll get to the Marvin and Claire story when I was like 18 to 20, and I know how you all feel right now, or even if you're non-traditional, like 30 or above, and starting your second act, you're kind of coming to this campus. A lot of my career success came out of the naysayers, unsolicited advice, and people telling me I couldn't do it. And I would say it started when I grew up in a family of PhDs, engineers, people who went to my grandpa, and my father went to UW in engineering. They would laugh at a BA. A lot of my high schooler friends from Federal Way, Washington were like, you're gonna go to the Wheatfield College where people drink a bunch? Are you serious? And I think for me, I had to remember, and it was even harder to do that in junior high through the time I came up here, right? I was very shy, a lot shyer than I am now. And I had to really just hone into my own authenticity and go, okay, well, I can't afford USC Film School. I can't afford NYU. I can't afford to go to LA right now. So what can I make the most out of my education here? And that's when I walked over to Marvin Marcello's office and I said, I know I want to be in the visual medium and tell important stories and see more female women of ethnicity leading, making decisions, hiring decisions, being more inclusive. I graduated during the recession, okay? So when you have a BA degree in broadcast production and you minor in theater, the best jobs you can have from ages 20 to 30 is a name tag, a uniform, and you want fries with that, is where you kind of start. And so I think my mic is not, I'll just talk a little louder. But when I was in Marvin's office, it was kind of like a light bulb. I think that sometimes you're searching for your journey and your calling, and sometimes it finds you. And so when I was in his office, I said, you know, I think this is a little crazy. I don't think my family will approve. I don't even know how I'm gonna get from A to Z in this. but how the heck am I going to do film? How the heck am I going to like be a filmmaker, an actor? That's like a pipe dream. How do people do that? Isn't it more nepotistic? Isn't it like you have to be born into that system in LA and grow up there? Doesn't it have to be in your backyard? And Marvin just looked me straight in the eye and he goes, well, you know, we aren't USC, we aren't NYU, but you're working every day really hard in a Cable 8 studio, a mock studio that's having you put your hand on, you know, cameras, all kinds of cameras, running around reporting stories, interviewing people, sticking your neck out there, being courageous, making the mistakes you need to make, making the colleagues you need to make long term. You're working in a television studio, you're learning what you need to learn. It may not be film, but find what you can in broadcast production, and that will parlay. You won't know all the answers now, but that will parlay into where you're going to go in the future. So I'd say 20 years in, zigged and zagged, and all. As you can hear in our stories, it's a lot of zigging and zagging. There's not a lot of like straight line paths. I hope I can be here to just help you guys not make the long mistakes I made or the blind spots I made along the way in the zigging and zagging. But I think for me, 20 years in, I'm very proud to say that I'm a female filmmaker of minority when people didn't think I could do it. I have incredible male allies who are mentors, incredible female allies that are mentors. I'm seeing a huge landscape of younger generations, different looking people, different voices telling stories. And yeah, when Seattle was known for making little indie shorts that are horror, I realized I wanted to speak more narratively and do narrative fiction. And so my fourth film, I finished wrapping a fourth film that is animated, and I was able to work so hard to attract a former Disney animator to be my lead animator on my short film, and it might go to good luck to us, our team. It's a team of 5 people. We made it during COVID and wrapped it up. 2023, February 2023, we entered it into Cannes, we entered it into Annecy, Gaffoni. Wish us luck. We're going to enter it into the Oscars. We're going to enter it into some big places because I think that's the team of 5 and 7. A lot of what you're experiencing here in broadcast production is that you're learning how to be scrappy and make content and be creative within the limitations. And so, yeah, from all the naysayers and people who think I can do it, I just kept focusing, putting one foot in front of the other, surrounding myself with people like Marvin, my colleagues here, and here I am. And the journey is still, I think, beginning for me. It may be 20 years in, but I'm still learning new things as I grow. So that's my story.
Thanks, Claire. Joey, when you were here at Cable 8, I think you had a show or a segment called The Love Doctor. And I said, that is your passion right there. I think the world is ready for Joey Clift and The Love Doctor. I don't know if it ever came to fruition, but tell us how your kind of path went.
Wow. Yeah, I think it was called The Love Doctor. It was very weird. I did not date much, but I gave dating advice on the Cable 8 dating show, completely guessing. It was very fun. So my story, like a lot of the people on the panel, is a very windy one. I really loved comedy growing up, shows like The Simpsons, Family Guy, Conan O'Brien, and things like that. But I'm Native American, enrolled Cowlitz, and because I didn't see any Native comedians on TV, I didn't think I was allowed to work in comedy. So instead I went to school, WSU, for what to me felt like the next best thing, which was to be a small market TV weather guy. Because I figured they get to have personalities and crack jokes, and that felt like an attainable way that I could get paid making people laugh. So I came to WSU. I heard that it had a really great college-run TV station and Cable 8. I think I visited the Cable 8 offices before I visited my dorm. I was that level of just passionate, wanting to dive into it. And I think over the span of my time at WSU, I think I did in 3 years 12 Cable 8 shows, hosting so many segments like The Love Doctor and other things, creating my own show. When I was in Glenn Johnson's Broadcast 465 class, I created so many news packages that Glenn, halfway through the semester, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you have an A, right? You can stop making packages." And I was like, "No, I need to have a good newsreel so I could report the news in Post Falls, Idaho." And while I was going through this, a Cable 8 show that I wrote, produced, and co-starred in that Julian actually directed, ended up winning College Broadcasters Incorporated National Student Production Award for Best Comedy, beating out people at Ivy League schools, a ton of, like real film schools. And I remember like holding this trophy for the CBI award and thinking to myself, like, wow, this is going to look really cool on my news desk. And it was around this point that, a lot of my professors pulled me aside, folks like Glenn Johnson, Richard Haflinger, Roberta Kelly, and Wayne Popesky, and explained to me that, comedy is clearly something where my passion was. I remember, I think Marvin specifically gave me the advice that it was clear that I could get a job in news, but it was clear that my ceiling for growth was greater in the entertainment industry. And, I would say while I was at WSU, I had probably, a half dozen kind of moments like that really gave me the push to, pursue comedy as an actual career path. And I think that, like, I actually had to show you how far down the path I was. I had an internship set up at CBS Radio in London, the exact place where Edward R. Murrow did his World War II reporting. And while I was in London, to the great annoyance of the person booking the internship program, I swapped it from that to an internship at like an alt comedy production company. And she was just like, what? I spent so much time getting the CBS thing. It seemed perfect. So I, off of that, moved to Los Angeles in 2010, really dove into the LA comedy scene with both feet, places like the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. And basically just kind of worked my way up through different, like assistant jobs, to sleeping on my brother's couch, to working at failing internet startups, to doing sketch comedy and making my own shorts and things on the side. And eventually that led to, writing jobs on like deep cable shows, which probably you can't even Google, they're so deep cable, to, working for higher priority shows and cooler things. And right now I just wrapped writing on a show called Spirit Rangers on Netflix, which is the first animated series in the history of US animation created by a Native person with an all-Native American writer's room, which I'm a writer, consultant, producer on, with Native characters played by Native actors. And I've really found myself in this fortunate spot to create the type of representation that I didn't know I wanted when I was growing up, but like now that I am older, I know that I needed to just see that I like, to see Native people working in the entertainment industry, to see that like this is even a career path that I could follow. And since then I've got a lot of other cool things going on I'm excited about. I'm just a working TV writer. I've got shows in development at Nickelodeon and Paramount Plus. I just released a Comedy Central digital series that I created and wrote and directed, and have like a documentary that I consulting produced that's about to go through festivals, and I have like shorts that have gone through the festival circuit and stuff. And I think that I definitely, though I'm not working in news, I definitely take those lessons that I learned from my time at WSU and like still apply them constantly. Like Roberta Kelly's comm class, the make or break media writing class, really taught me to like hit deadlines and be a fast writer, which is something that comes in really handy when I've got to turn in like jokes and scripts and stuff like that with like very little notice. And I think that Cable 8 has really taught me so many lessons about like what Julian said of just like being down to just kind of dig in and try the thing and give something a shot. And the ability to have all this great on-camera experience is something that I feel like I came to LA with, just like a really good entertainment reel that like I feel like a lot of people that move to LA don't really have, and just the knowledge of how to edit, because I edited all my own news packages on Avid. So I think that there's just like so much that I've taken away from this experience of going to WSU and being involved at Cable 8 that has been directly applicable in my career of writing goofs for kids. So, I can't thank Marvin in this place enough for giving me the tools to succeed in a career that you would not think that I would have based on my education.
Thanks, Joey. We're going to pass around the mic, but before I do that, I want to take this moment here to wave this magic wand, turn you all back to 21 years old, and don't rush to Rico's yet. Okay. But now that you're graduating this coming May, Robert, what would you do now? Knowing what you know now, what would you do as a newly minted graduate?
Well, I think the biggest thing is obviously what's happened in the digital landscape. I mean, I'm old enough, it didn't exist when I graduated. So, I mean, you'd have to, I'd probably pivot a lot more to what Joey was talking about, because I think that's in line to really where the future is going. And, what you were talking about as well, as far as just taking more control. I think the biggest thing that I think is opportunity now is more opportunities to create your own path. You know, I think when I got out of school, it was much more traditional in the way you came up through the industries. Now you have so many more options. And I think that would be the biggest thing. I mean, I am inspired by the fact that they just dove into the deep end of the pool and really took the risk and did it, you know, and I commend them for that.
Karen?
I wish I would have cast a wider net with just applying for jobs that were outside of the area I grew up in. I think I would have benefited from maybe leaving town, getting a little bit further away from my parents, and trying something new and kind of starting on that path. I think everything worked out just fine, but I do wish that I would have just cast that wider net with sending out more job applications and sharing demos and things like that with different areas.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the things I was glad I did was network before you leave campus, and if you're not graduating, definitely network with the people older than you, because they're going to be in the workforce before you are, and they might help you do some shortcuts. And I think with that in mind, all the people who I went down to LA with a couple people and definitely recruited more people. You're going to have free time, just make your own stuff. You never know. The people who you will be surrounded with, the people you're graduating with, are probably more talented than you're giving them credit for, because everyone's going to go out and become something. And some of the people may become more successful. You may just become a super successful writer, or a super successful camera person. Everyone find what you like to do, have your own roles, and then work together to make some fun stuff. Because even when you get old, you look back and you're like, that was pretty good. That was some good stuff I made. Should have made more of that. So I think that's, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I have to hunch over here. I think what I would tell my, 20-year-old, 22-year-old self, knowing what I know now then, is that have this room, this school, produces a lot of people in entertainment, in very, very competitive and sometimes elitist fields, sometimes fields that you feel like is a little far away from who you are. I would say that when it gets tough and you deal with a lot of rejection, just try to base your passion for the art. I was so focused on the art, and I wasn't focused on what is my art gonna do for people? Is it gonna create opportunities? What is my mission and purpose for doing this? There's so many people that look like me doing this. There's so many people that look like you trying to attempt this career, this competitive career. So I think what I went through in my 2 decades of doing this is whenever it got hard, or whenever someone undercut me, or whenever it got toxic, I just try to remember, okay, what's my mission and purpose for why I'm making my films? Why do I care about this story? What do I want to do with this story? If I have career growth, who am I bringing with me? So I think mission, purpose can help put perspective when you're getting a lot of rejection. And there will be a lot of rejection, a lot of triumphs in this calling we're in, which is visual medium. Thanks.
So if I was talking to 21, 22-year-old Joey, I would say, hey, that $20,000 that you spent on that internship in London that you got out of student loans, take that and invest $10,000 in Apple, $10,000 in Bitcoin, and just sit on it for a little while and see what happens. For real though, I want to echo Julian's advice in that I think that it's so important to do lateral networking. Your first job that you get based out of college is going to for sure be from somebody that you know from WSU. It's going to be from an alumni connection. It's going to be from somebody that you were in an edit bay on a Cable 8 show at 2 a.m. trying to figure out how the blade tool works. It's going to be somebody that you were in a news class with. My first job when I first moved to LA, I basically just got coffee with every single kook that I knew down there, and then everybody that I met with, I asked if there were any kooks that they knew that they would connect me with. And then I just did that enough that a friend of mine, and I followed all these conversations with hey, I'm looking for work, so hire me for stuff if you're looking for employees. And one of those coffees the person that I met with, who was like a teleprompter operator on one episode of one Cable 8 show that I was on. She got a call from somebody a week later that was like an executive in charge of a production company saying, hey, we're going to fire our assistant. Do you know anybody who'd be a good assistant replacement? And she said, oh, I just met with a new kook down here named Joey Clift. He's super nice. Here's his resume. And then I got a call 1 hour after that. 2 hours after that, I was in their office interviewing. And then 2 hours after that, I got a call from them telling me that I got the job and that I started on Monday, you know? And that's entirely through like Cable 8 alumni connections of people that I met just doing stuff and making stuff. In addition to that, just like be nice, because like, ultimately, like I said, your first job is going to come from like a personal recommendation from somebody probably, and people probably aren't going to recommend you if you suck. So yeah, be nice and try to be the type of person that you want to work with. Also, like do internships, and I feel like I remember when I was at WSU, I would hear a lot of people that would say like, oh, I'm a senior, I should probably get involved in Cable 8 right before I graduate. And it's like, no, you should get involved when you're a sophomore, because that just gives you more shows and more things to work on and more opportunities to meet people that you can network with that can help you get those future jobs. I would say, network, do as much Cable as you can, work hard, try to do internships, because those connections are what's going to lead you to your first job. Also, is that hum coming from my microphone? Where's that coming from? Oh, cool. I'm running on very little sleep, so I was like, am I imagining that?
You're a rock star. That's why he's doing that feedback.
Oh, dang.
All right, we'll take some questions now. And as we look for someone to ask, I want to ask the panel, and anyone can kind of answer this. What was your greatest failure in college that helped you move forward? That's why I don't want to pin it on anybody, because maybe you don't have a failure. Your 455 class.
You said your greatest failure in college that
helped propel you forward to say, I've got to be better than this. It was the midterm. I know it was.
Yeah.
See, they all laugh at that.
I mean, I don't know. I was pretty hurt.
It's hard to pick one. There's so many classics. Yeah. But I will say, like, longest of this story's short. It's just that, you learn the most from your failures more than your successes. And whether you be in an instance where you're making the mistake that everyone has to make once, like whether it be a lighting mistake or casting or crewing or any of the many mistakes you can do, I would say that very often or not, you'll learn something during that, and then you'll be able to teach that mistake to someone else and save them that mistake later on, and then that person might repay you down the line. So like, just learning from your mistakes. I've remembered everything that's gone wrong on projects, but all the projects that went by smoothly and without any event, easily forgettable, because nothing notable. Everything went well. Great. High five. On to the next one. So I guess, but I'm not gonna pick any of my.
If you're gonna make mistakes, this is college. This is the time to do it, because that's where, with all of us in the industry, in our respective industries, you don't get a lot of chances to make mistakes. So if you're gonna make mistakes, this is the place to experiment, explore, fall on your face. You have supportive classmates who are falling on their face too with you, and pick yourself back up, because that's really where you're gonna learn. We don't really learn a lot from our successes, because it doesn't require one to reflect. We learn a little bit more when a team fails or when something isn't working, is what requires us to reflect on what can work in the future.
I wouldn't say this is a specific failure, but you talk about networking and these amazing professors that you have access to, and if I could go back and redo it, I would have prioritized my time a little bit better and made more of those connections outside of the classroom setting. I still have amazing connections, but I had jobs when I was here, working multiple jobs, and I was in a sorority, so just busy. I should have prioritized more of those connections. So if you're not doing it, do it, and if you're doing it already, do it more.
Great. We have questions from people?
Yeah, actually, wait. I think that for me, there was a level of it's important to know that Cable 8 is a TV station that people watch, and I think being so passionate about everything that I was doing and feeling like the stakes were so high in shows that I was making and stuff like that. And I think that, I think that I've learned, or like, I think that a lesson that I wish I took away at that time was like, I don't know, it's college TV. This is the time to have fun and make mistakes. If like a show doesn't get a second season at Cable 8, that's not like, you're fine. It's okay. Like, so I think that stop and have fun and don't take things personally, and do your best and work hard, but also just like don't be so passionate about every little Cable 8 show that you do.
Hey, how's it going? A lot of you, or a couple of you guys were talking about kind of lateral moves you made like early in your career, maybe into like outside of the industry or remaining in the industry. What was maybe for any of you, what was the biggest difficulty you encountered in transitioning into a different job that was maybe focused in a different part of the industry, and like how did you overcome that? Like what was your mindset through it maybe?
That's a really good question. I would say, and I'm going to yell because I don't know if this is working or not. But I will say that what can be tough is that when I was 8 years old I watched Christiane Amanpour, and I like worshipped her, and that's why I came to the school. I was like, I want to be the next Christiane Amanpour on CNN. And then you get into like your junior year, and you want to major in French and travel the world, and you want to be a media law lawyer, and then you want to also possibly have a backup career in education, and you want to maybe be an accountant just in case the entertainment thing doesn't work out. And so I would say that being from 8 years old to like graduating high school with a resume of like editor of school paper, editor of yearbook, coming in with a lot of journalism credentials, it took me out of the parlaying part is what. But I had to remember, and what I want to tell everyone, if you didn't remember anything I said, that's okay, because I space out in my own speeches too. I would say that just know that it's all cumulative. No experience is wasted here. So anything that you're honing in for, 5 years out here, it'll come back to you later on, whatever you decide to do. And it's okay to not know what you want to do right this moment too.
Also, whenever making any sort of move, whether it be lateral, forwards, or backwards, you're probably trying something different. And I think the key, for at least me, and most people agree, is just kind of fake it till you make it. No one's going to applaud you, and you're like, sorry, I can't do that. I don't know. I'm not quite sure I know how to do that. Like when you're just like, yeah, I got it. Just give me a little bit of a walkthrough here. Yeah, I totally got this. And the minute you achieve that, what could have been a lateral move might be the most, ladder climbing type of thing that you could have planned for. So
I would just say, going from my failed sales and advertising career to what I consider to be a pretty successful broadcasting career, at least I speak the language of sales and advertising. So in the setting of working at this radio cluster, I feel like I can really understand the sales team and what their needs are from us, and it's very easy for me to collaborate with them because I do speak that language. So again, any of that experience that you're getting, it will transfer in some way, shape, or form, and build your resume in ways that you might not expect.
I think it's okay to chase your own happiness. I feel like if you try a certain career path after you graduate, or if you major in something, but it makes you deeply unhappy, you can try a new thing. Like, you don't have to, if you've been in a career for 5 years and you aren't fulfilled doing it, it's okay to try to shift to a career that you would feel fulfilled by. Because, we only have one little life, and you want to ideally spend it doing stuff that fulfills you and that you enjoy. So people think of quitting as a bad word. But I think of if you're quitting as a means to give yourself the opportunity to find something that you love even more than the thing that you quit, that's awesome. You should do that.
Any other questions?
All right. We're kind of in an industry, communications, just in general, where it's kind of built off of connections. But I wanted to ask, how do you establish yourself sort of in a geographic area or an industry or like a niche market or even like a different culture where you don't have the connections or you don't have the Murrow Mafia to support you?
step on a mic if someone's talking, in the middle of talking, but I would say, you know, a big thing we talked about here on this panel is relationships, and you can build relationships anywhere. I mean, even this guy in Hollywood, right? He was in LA for a while, right? I have colleagues in LA and New York City, and I would say that a big radical act is being yourself, because in a landscape like that, it's so much about what's, you know, on the surface and smoke and mirrors. So I think if you can get a little bit deeper into your authentic self, and that'll take the time it'll take. I'm still trying to find myself as I progress in this filmmaking thing too, and I learn new things each groove and each phase. But I would say for me, my biggest success was having the relationships with Marvin, with my students, having a camaraderie, knowing that this is a collaborative art form and teamwork. And everyone remembers if you're a nice, hardworking person. They don't remember if you're a jerk. You know, that goes around too. There's reputations. So I would say, and also you're coming up in a really amazing time. Like, Wi-Fi, internet, like Zoom. I made my animated short after I survived brain surgery. Shot it in my apartment with one DP. I did all the roles, he did all the roles. Uploaded all of my live action footage for the Disney animator to upload on Dropbox, download, and rotoscope over it. So I think your limitations can, in a weird way, inform the fact that a lot of my teammates, like my VFX supervisor, like I haven't even met him in person, but it's a team of 5 to 7. And I would say if you're starting independent film and trying to fish out to those bigger markets like LA, New York, and beyond, it takes one to be creative about the creative process and being really resourceful. So I think you'll be fine. Like, I think if you're a nice person and you're sincerely interested in how you can merge your skill sets with another person's skill sets, like, that network will grow. And it doesn't mean you have to like party and drink a bunch, you know what I mean? Like, if it comes from a sincere place and what you're contributing is sincere, you'll find sincere people to come with you and be part of that career with you.
Yeah, a couple things on that. Cougs are all over the place. Like, we're all over the world. You know, I mean, though there might not be Murrah Mafia people, which is a term, this is the first time I've heard it. I love that term. Yeah, there's Cougs all over the place. I think that there's an additional benefit in that COVID has really opened up the professional world's comfort with Zoom chats and video chats and stuff like that. I work in LA. Most of the projects that I work on are with execs in LA, and my meetings are still over Zoom because it's like nobody wants to drive on the freeway, you know? Yeah, so like, I think that people are generally, I think that especially like, and I'm not saying this is like across the board, but I think generally it's like Cougs want to help out Cougs, so it's like you could reach out to a Coug who lives in New York and send him a LinkedIn DM and ask to pick their brain, and they would at least think about it before they say no, you know? I mean, I assume they probably, it's like, you know, I feel like those sorts of, you know, like pick your brain Zoom sessions are easy yeses, I think, for Cougar alumni to do with other Cougar alumni. And you can do that anywhere that has an internet connection. And then just more broadly, like outside of the Cougar network, if you move into a place and you don't know anybody, take an improv class. It's like, that's the easiest way to make friends. You're making silly goofs with people. It's very low stakes, and I don't know, that's just a good way to make friends.
Getting the first job is the hardest part. But when you get that first job, whether it's a one-day gig or a one-week gig or whatever it is, and whether you're on set or you're on an office, stay late, show up early, and you know, you don't know when you're going to see those people again. But I guarantee you, the important people on those shows will be there early, and they will be there late. And if they recognize your face, that's more than half the battle. Because yeah, the Coug Network is everywhere, but your first gig might not have any Cougs in the building. So the best way to network, essentially, is they want to talk to you, you're nice, but they want to know that you work hard, and they want to be able to rely on you. So if you can do those two things, it's a pretty good head start.
I think it's also always a good idea to get involved in some sort of a nonprofit setting in your wherever you are, because that can expand your reach in a really big way and give you a whole additional network of people. So that's something that I do a lot of work with the National MS Society, and that's like a whole separate family from my radio family, and I think that can definitely help you make new connections and, you know, form new friendships. And also, you know, going to any sort of like a networking event that might be happening. That's something I used to do a ton of, especially when I was in the sales and advertising days, going to whether it was like a chamber of commerce or something of you know, along those lines. Anytime that you can go out and be seen and social and collect, you know, I don't know if people do business cards anymore, maybe not, add them on LinkedIn, whatever it might be, but just get that digital Rolodex going, and it will serve you well no matter where your path will take you.
Okay, I think that's time for the panel. Thank you very much. All right, and they'll stick around a couple of minutes if you want to talk to them, and then remember tonight the keynote speech. Thank you.